He said, thank you guys for coming today. I've never done one of these before, so bear with me if I go too fast or mumble or any of that. Yeah, so my name's Rebekah. I live in Cary and I work full-time as an artist now as of last year. I went to UNCG and got my degree in drawing and printmaking in 2017. And then I did my art on the side for a few years, and now I've been doing it, selling on Etsy, everything that Ollie said. I'm selling it in shops. At the museum store has a setup right now with a few of my prints and some stickers, so if you want to go check that out, they're very kind enough to put that together for me. But yeah, let's see. So today, I think it'll just be, I'm going to try and make at least 2 drawings with you. You're welcome to draw along with me or just watch. I'm going to try and describe what I'm doing and show you what I'm using. I'm not super particular about a lot of the materials I use. So like if you don't have what I'm using, that's totally fine. I kind of just have a hodgepodge of things I've collected over the years. But I'll show you more of that in a moment. But first, if you're not familiar with any of my work, I just wanted to show a few examples. So let's see if I can share my screen here. Use that. Okay, so here's a few. And some of these are from last year. Some of these are from more recently. Most of these are made with watercolor like we're going to use today. And then I'm going to use graphite today. Sometimes, which like this one is just watercolor and graphite on paper. But sometimes I just use like an ink pen or a marker and kind of work in a sort of stream of conscious way. Usually when I start a drawing, I don't really know what I'm making. I might think like, oh, I want to draw a cat, or like I want to draw a field or something. Like I just start with like a vague idea and then go with it. I'm like, this one I wanted to draw some frogs. And there might be too many here. But yeah, mostly just let myself play with the watercolors and see where that takes me, and then go over the top of them with lines and kind of define more of the shapes while still letting myself be a little messy in a way. You might not think they look messy, but I promise you I'm making a mess. And these are more recent ones. This was a part of a show in Greensboro called We Are Home, and there's supposed to be more like things you might find in your home, like animal paintings or like food things from around the house. So I kind of just went with, I want animals and vegetables. And I pretty much try and draw anything that makes me happy. So I really love frogs, if you can't tell, and like little landscape scenes, and try and incorporate, like if this was like a dream space, I think of this like, what would the tomatoes be walking around? I think this one is at the art museum right now. I believe there should be prints available of them, as well as this one. So let's go back. Let's see. Okay, hopefully that worked. All right, so there's a little bit of my work. Hopefully you guys know. I'm gonna switch my screen around now so you guys can see my desk, and then I'll show you whatever materials I have, and then we'll go from there. I'm gonna mute myself because my tripod. Okay, hopefully you guys can see that okay. So I've got some paper here. I'm gonna start with a small piece and then I'll move on to a larger piece, but this is just, it's Canson's watercolor paper. It's in a pack that has like the big XL on it. It's pretty good watercolor paper, especially for the price. And then, which you can find, like, I got this at Michael's, but they have it at Jerry's. If you're looking for some good, affordable watercolor paper. And then today, I've kind of just collected watercolors over the years. And then whenever I run out of one, I'll try and find a good one from there. So some of these are just different brands, but this is my favorite red that I'm using. It's a Winsor Newton Scarlet Lake. I used to have it in like a pan form, but now I just get the tubes and refill it. And then Lucas. This is not my favorite flavor of Lucas. They had one that was like a studio version that I thought was a lot better, which I think you can only get in sets now. But the olive green, I love olive green. This one's like the Aquarelle 1862. It's okay. I would recommend just getting the set so you can get that green. And then, so yeah, this one's the Aquarelle Studio. I like these a lot more for some reason. I don't know what makes them different, but I don't know. I found this one like at a used art supply store, I think. I don't know where to find the tubes other than there, but this is just a cyan. And then got a little burnt umber. Not sure if I'll use it today, but I like this as a good brown. And this is just a Cotman brand, very old. And then a lemon yellow. This is Reeves. See, I just have a collection of everything because I try and use everything that I have until it runs out. And some of these things I just never use the whole thing of. And then my favorite yellow ran out, so I'm using a gouache actually for this. It's a deep yellow. Gouache, if you're not familiar with it, is kind of like watercolor, but it's not as, you can't reactivate it with water. So it's more like an acrylic. But I use it in the same way, and as long as I use all of it, I don't waste it. But I like this yellow. Then as for, so we'll do like a base with the watercolor. Oh, and also for white, this might be like a sin for painters. I'm not sure, but my professors gave me a hard time about it in college, but I used white acrylic instead of watercolor for that because I just go through so much of it. And like this is like a $6 tube and it lasts me years versus like a little thing of white watercolor, which I go through so quickly, and it doesn't give me like the same opaqueness that I want whenever I'm using the white. So that's what I use for white, which might be against the rules, but that's okay. We can break the rules. And then for my graphite, so I have a collection of different, I prefer these over pencils, but the pencils are just as great. You can't even read this anymore. It's so dark, but it's a graphite pencil where the whole thing is graphite. There's no wood here. And then you can just use an X-Acto knife or even a regular sharpener to wear it down. I prefer dark graphite. So this is a 4B, not quite black, but as black as I can get it with it still looking like I'm using a pencil. And then I also have these sticks. This one's a 6B. It's called a graph cube. You can find these in like the pencil section of like most art supply stores. I like these because you can use the sides of them, you can use just the tip, and get lots of good coverage. And I even have this big gigantic man. This one's a 6B. I have them up to like 9B. And then erasers, just in case. I don't usually erase. I usually just start over, which sounds bad, but I'm kind of impatient and don't want to take time to erase things. But erasing is good. Don't be afraid to erase stuff. And then so I have little palette here with things already spread out. I just have it on this like mat because it wobbles and the sound is annoying. And then I have some water in my little paint cup. My paintbrushes I have saved from a long time. I'm not really sure what kind they are, but like I've destroyed them, but I still love them because they're just, this one's so comfy to hold. I think it used to be rounded out, but now it's not so much. I'm a big proponent of just using what you have until you really can't use it anymore, unless you want to buy yourself a treat and then get new art supplies. And then we've got one like this. This one's just a watercolor brush. Still not too sure what it was. And then I'll probably just use those today. And then I have some napkins, paper towels, because I like to dab up extra water. I think that's everything I'm going to use today. If you guys have questions about whatever, let me know. But for starters, I think I'll just do like one little character drawing with you first, and then go on to a bigger scene, if that sounds good with everyone. And then we'll go from there. So first, I'm not really sure. Whenever I start, I just try and think of like an animal, or if I'm drawing a person, I'll just draw a person, but I'm gonna stick with animals today because I feel like their shapes are easier. If you're drawing along, their shapes are easier to get with or like duplicate. So I'm gonna make, I'm pulling, I've already added a little bit of water to these, but if you're just squeezing them out of a tube or using a pan, you'll want to add a little bit of water to them so you can spread it further. I'm gonna pull a little bit of this yellow over, and then grab some of my white. My white paint I always just contaminate. If you want to be a real pro, you'll have less contamination than I do. I make a super huge mess out of my palette, but that's okay. You'll see what happens to it. Maybe I'll be better today. So I kind of wanted just a little bit of a creamier yellow than that. I think this guy, let's make a rabbit. Okay. So usually I'll start with just a head. Might move on to a different brush. This brush gets a little bit more coverage. And don't be afraid to use lots of water. If you use too much water, use your paper towels to dab things up. And so I made like a circle and little bunny ears. He's a little reflective. I use a lot of water. Sometimes I feel like I'm cheating when I do this, but I do it anyways. Dab it up, and then I'll go back over. That way the water like helps it like spread out a bit more, like the paper is already prepared and it won't pool together in like one area. Sometimes that's really cool and I love doing that. But for him, I want his face to be like a solid yellow. Let's see. Hopefully with my lamp, maybe he's a little bit less reflective. That's okay. He's a little shiny. And then, so we've got his head. I kind of want to put him in overalls. So we're going to start, I've got a little bit of blue. I'm going to take some of my white again to make it more of a, like a light jean blue. And then we'll go some overalls. starting at where his shoulders would be. It's going to be a anthropomorphic rabbit if you guys haven't already realized that. And then we're going to just spread this out. His little legs aren't going to make it onto the paper because I made him too big. That's okay. So I'm using a lot of water, a lot of watercolor. Here's his little overall dress. Again. Now my paper is starting to buckle up. If you like don't want to press down on your paper to hold it down, any sort of like art tape or washi tape is good for keeping it flat. I usually just hold it, but see if the water starts to do its thing with the paper. And then I think I want to give him a little red shirt. Let's do a short sleeve. I'm like, it's okay. I'm getting pretty close to my blue, but not quite touching it. I think it's really fun when the colors run together. So if you want that to happen, just like go right on in. But for him, you just go quite close. One thing about using the acrylic is like this part, so this has the acrylic in it, and like this part's already kind of dried. So now when I put water back on top of it, they won't mix together too much. Only when it's dry though, it kind of just sits on top. He's a big baby. There's a t-shirt, little sleeves. And then I'm gonna go back with my yellow that I made for his head and give him some arms. And little baby hands. It's kind of just like a standard guy just standing here. One thing, hands, I used to take them way too seriously. And now I'm at the point where everybody knows what a hand looks like. So if you get close to it, be like, okay, yeah, that's a hand, even if it's not like super, like he's got fingers, they're a little stumpy, but that's okay. Everyone knows he's got hands. And then, let's see. I kind of want, yeah, this is kind of how my process goes. I start building up wherever it goes and then embellish as I go on. So for him, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Actually, no, I'll wait. I think I'll give him a nice pocket. So I'm gonna go back with my jean blue and add a little bit extra of the cyan to it. So it's a little bit darker now. I don't know if you can see it. And give him a little pocket here. That's what overalls have. For a pocket, it's just like a half circle, kind of. And then while I've got that blue, I'm gonna give them some more pockets. A little side pocket here. the side pocket there. Doesn't have to be super detailed. Well, one thing we're going to do is we're going to go over everything with the graphite to kind of define things. So if things are just blobs right now, that's okay. Then for his background, use a little bit of my olive green. I have to water this one down quite a bit because it's, I want to say like more oily. I don't know. There's the texture of this particular paint just needs more water. And I think I'll just use that straight up. Go in, give him a little background. Oh, there goes the red. Okay, so that happens, but that looks so pretty there, that little moment. So I just let it go. If you like hate that, if you're using watercolor, I just go and dab it up and then go back over it. And then get rid of that there. But sometimes little accidents like that, they're not even accidents, it's just the nature of the medium. Or like if you do that and go over his arm. He's in some tall grass. Your grass is great because it's just use your brush and pull it forward. And then you can add some little dabs for like the top of the grass. It's out in the field. The grass behind him. So I'm gonna go around his hands. And like I'm not taking too much time trying to be perfect with it. Kids don't need to. If you're more of a perfectionist than I am, go a little slower, but I like to finish a drawing very quickly usually. So I just let things be as they are. Then give them a little bit of a sky. I'm going to use the same blue as his shirt or his overalls and just water it down quite a bit now. And then I'll just do what, like, call it a wash over. I'll use a bigger brush for this if you're doing a wash. And just getting a very translucent sky. Just roughly going around him. You can get closer to the edges if you want, but that's okay. Hopefully, I'm not even sure if the camera's picking. This is a very light blue, but I'm gonna dab it up. I love dabbing this stuff up because it gives you like whatever the texture of the paper towel or my Chipotle napkin, whatever this is. And I don't know, it's fun. I like the wrinkles that it leaves. So that's very light. And I think I just did that. Okay. So here we've got a little baby and he needs a face now. So right at this point, my face yellow should be dry enough to draw on top of. If it's still a little wet, like you can still use the graphite on top, it just doesn't get as dark. So we're gonna give him, let me turn this a little. Be careful touching things. I am making a mess here. You can give him some eyes. For eyes, you can do anything for eyes. I just do like a little squished oval. And then give him a little, he's looking sideways. Let's just fill that in there. I'm not letting how his eyes are looking. Sometimes I like to just use this side. Ooh. He's crying now. This is when you erase. Using one of these like squishy erasers, putting it into a point. No more crying. Don't do what I'm doing and just get stuff all over him. Yeah. And a little nose. And a little bunny man. And some whiskers. I'm making a big old mess. Okay. I'm gonna use this guy instead, just because I want a different line quality. And I'm just gonna go out. See, this one gives you can get like these thick lines. Just go around and it's okay if it doesn't go quite over like the exact shape that you made before. I like kind of the idea that they like are floating on, like they're floating in the same space. Kind of like if you see like a newspaper that's like misprinted a little, like where it's shifted a little, I really like that. Whatever that is, what happens? So Art's like completely butchered his poor little overalls. So I'm gonna fix them real quick. Y'all didn't see this. That's okay. This is just like a first sketch. Let's finish his little head. Let's go and outline every shape that I made. Gonna have 5 fingers. Kind of want some overalls to have the little clasps, you know. Just look how, like, another big part of these things is like I like the texture of it. It's almost like a creamy, waxy. It's not like a charcoal where you feel the grain of that material. I don't know. I like it tactily. It feels better. Go big in the pocket. Not a perfect one. That's okay. Let's got some pockets here. A few little like stitch lines in his pocket. I'm not going to do anything with the grass right now. I'm going to go back and make his eyes a little darker. Also, I think he needs some eyebrows. Bushy eyebrows. Some little fluff for his bunny ears. Okay. And then in the back, I'm gonna use my big graphite and add like some little like rainy day clouds. So I'm just using like the side of this to get this big old space of graphite. And see, this comes down really dark immediately. Like you don't have to press hard on it, but if you press lightly, you can also just get this nice, I love this stuff. So it's a storm coming behind him. And just fill that in, add in a few clouds, and maybe go in with like the corner of this and define them a little. Maybe some little babies in the sky for him. My favorite part is giving everybody little red cheeks. So I just go back with the watercolor. That is big old cheeks. And at this point, after I've added the lines, I could probably would go back and touch up spots to like make them a bit more vibrant. I want his red shirt to be a little bit redder. And then we're gonna fix his little arm. Kind of add a little bit more green for the graphs behind him. And there. Here's the first little sketch bunny. He's probably a farmer. I'm not sure. So that was a good, hopefully that kind of showed you how I build up drawings most of the time. And he's pretty much done. I'm gonna call him done. I made a mess with him, but that's okay. Let's see. I'm gonna move on now, unless you guys have any questions. I'm gonna move on to a bigger drawing. And got just a bigger piece of that paper. So for this one, I want to try and build up a little bit of like a landscape first, and then add on top of it, and we'll see what sort of scene we build. So one thing about drawing for me is it's a like very much so like a way for me to like not only have fun, but it's like a therapeutic thing. So just using paint on paper, like I like this, like the sensation and the feeling of like making something on the paper. That's why I work mostly. I'll make digital stuff sometimes, but I work mostly traditionally, just making a mess. Just because I like the way it feels and I like the material. So right now I'm making like a pink. I'm ruining my red. It's all spilling together. That's okay. So making like a pink. A lot of times I don't know where to start, so I call them like blob drawings first, where I just take the paint and I'm just using the paint and seeing what it's doing. And I start with a few little blobs of like whatever color I want it. Like right now I want this like salmony pink. I made mixing the white, sorry, the white and the red. I'm just making blobs. There's no direction really yet. Right now I'm just adding the paint to the paper. Like I'm just pulling from the red. I'm doing these blobs and like I know it's going to be more of a landscape, so I'm doing them in like more horizontal lines. And like making sure to leave, because I want to see what the colors do when they bleed together in this one. So I'm making sure each blob is like pretty wet. So there's the pink. Now I'm going to pull just the yellow. And see, like that's so fun for me. I don't know about y'all, but just seeing these little spillages into everything else. I'm just going around. And if you're drawing along, like you don't have to make the same blobs as me. These are really just adding them. Might put a few out in the white space. I like to think of these, they're going to be kind of like hills or just little patches of dirt, obviously in very not natural colors. Um, like a good chunk of yellow here. Then let's just do the blue. Just kind of like building off each blob, seeing how they interact with each other. And the blue and the cyan, the blue and the yellow make a nice green together. Kind of like tie-dye, I don't know. But this part of the drawing process is like really, I use it as a warm-up when I'm not really sure what I want to make, but I want to make some sort of scene. I'm like, okay, I can just start with this and there's like no consequences to it, if that makes sense. Because if I don't like these blobs, I can just start another page. I don't want this over here, so I'm dabbing it up. And like one thing, like don't be afraid to waste paint or waste paper. I start over all the time. I try and like reuse paper if I do start over, like I'll put like gesso on top of it or something. But like make a good, don't treat your materials in such a precious way. I used to do that a lot, and then I would really feel bad if I messed something up, or like I feel like I was wasting something, which like sure you could say you were wasting something, but you making a mistake and having to start over is like all a part of the process of making something. So yeah, I like these. I'm gonna do this a bit more, just these like weird tissue paper textures. Add those throughout. And so we've got kind of a landscape going there. Hopefully y'all can see that. I think I'm doing pretty good on time. Okay. I'm not sure. I kind of don't want this to just be white. I've got this like bigger brush here that I like to use just for like filling up space quickly. We're gonna use the green. Just fill this space in. Down here. I'm coming like very close to it because I don't necessarily want to destroy the shape of all of these blobs. I do want some of their color to run together. And then I'm gonna do, because I want this to be about this width. Just dab it up. Now I've got this like nice, very light green that I can build on top of later. And I might do it. I'll make a more yellowish green for this section here. Ideally, you want to clean off your brush in between every mixture so you don't contaminate your like little sources of paint. But I see, this is why I'm not an art teacher because I break all these rules and make a big old mess with everything. But that's okay. More yellowish green here. Okay, I can untap that one just a little. And then I think I'll leave the top of it white. So this needs to dry like a tiny bit. I might go in down here and start doing something. I'm not sure what'll be happening with this yet, but I do want it. I know it's going to be like a field. I'll probably add maybe a few little ferns down in the bottom, hanging out. So now I'm just taking just the green again, not as watered down, and I'm going to add just a few. So this would kind of be the foreground. You don't have to work with like perspective or anything if you don't want to, but and do some bigger patches of grass just with this green. And add just a few little dollops here. I have it going off the page here. Using just the tip of the brush to get like these nice thin strokes. And then do a smaller patch here. And just a few little spritzes here in between. So we've got a little bit more of a foreground. Let's see. I kind of want just a little guy sitting maybe around here. Find a good spot for him. Not sure who. Okay, I'm gonna do a chicken. Okay, just for the sake of making a chicken. I really want chickens one day. I think they'd be so fun. So for chickens, frogs, other thing, they're all blobs to me at first. So this one's gonna be pretty little. It's kind of out in the field. I'm just using just the red for him. It's a little blob. And then here's his head. Kind of like a weird little fish shape. And then some extra little tufts of feathers on his back. He's gonna be sitting down. So when chickens sit down, they like, their bellies squish down a little bit more. There. And then we'll see. Who else will add? Maybe it'll be a mama chicken, and we'll give her a few little babies. I draw baby chicks as basically just circles. One of my favorite coffee mugs has a chicken like this on it, and then all of the, like, it looks like a normal chicken, but then all of the babies are just these tiny round circles with dots for eyes and tiny legs. I don't know. It makes me very happy, so that's how I've been drawing baby chicks. So they're sprinkled around She's watching them. And then I might just leave it with just those guys here. And then add some more landscape things. So over here, I'm gonna add just the green. This stuff is still a little wet over here. So they're gonna blend together. This will be more, instead of doing like grass strokes, I'm gonna make this more of a bush that I can like add flowers to or something later. So but I use like the side of the brush to get more rounded shapes. I'll let that go up there. Let it mix in with the red. And maybe one more little bush over here. Kind of like a cloud shape. Then, so that all needs to dry a little bit. This blue up here is taking forever. But anyways, I'm gonna let that sit for a second. And let's see. Thinking. I'm gonna use the burnt umber now. So I want to show like a few little, gosh, like the bush has like a few little branches underneath. And so I'm just pulling from like directly from the green so that they blend together a little, making these like twiggy shapes. Doesn't have to be anything very serious. Just another one over here. Might go in and just add a few. I like the brown, so I want to add a little bit around here, just on top of my blobs. I'm just gonna dab up kind of around the edges so the colors underneath show through, but I still got like the peak there. And I'm gonna dab this. To go. And all my little chickens, I want to draw on top of them, but they are very wet. So I'm just gonna, don't want to totally dab them up. Just use like the tip of your paper towel to like soak up some of that. Don't squish them like I squished that one. There, so now I can kind of draw on top of them without it putting a big old hole. I'm gonna sharpen this pencil really quick.
Hey, Rebecca, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Within one color, you sometimes shade one part darker, e.g. a darker shade of blue within the clouds. Are you doing this randomly or to suggest shadows?
It's mostly randomly, unless I'm like going back on top of it to add details like this. I just had like pulled that blue from like my my palette, but it wasn't like an intentional shadow or anything. I'll usually go back in for shadows after the fact, like if I want to show lighting in any way. Hopefully does that answer the question? It's mostly random.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I sharpened this guy a little bit more. So I'm gonna go in up here and add like a few, kind of using the side, add like a few little like lines. I'm just like letting them go because this is just an outside space. I'm just pulling the pencil, like pressing down a little bit more. I want a darker line, but then also letting like the texture of the paper come through too. Go a little bit lighter. Then we'll add a few little grass marks with this guy. Maybe, I think I'm ready to go over these little guys now. Okay, start with the one I squished. Just go over him. Some little chicken legs. Y'all can see that. And little chicken bean, which is just like a diamond shape. Little eyes. No wings or anything, just a little chicken nugget. And then we'll go to the mama. She's got a little tiny beak there. And just one little eye. I'll kind of go around her a little. Not like super straight up around and give her little wings. Then I know chickens sit with their feet usually tucked in underneath them, but I like seeing them in my drawings. So I stick them out. Also, I just think it'd be really funny if I saw a chicken sitting that way. Oh, give her a little feather on top. So there she is. And then we'll go around and give her little babies some faces. I'm flicking over at her. It's okay if you don't go quite on top of stuff. Thanks to her having a conversation, probably. It's gonna be sitting down. So they're little babies. And then now that we have them, I'm gonna go, sorry if that one, this guy now, and just like add more to their background. And again, here, like I'm not really picking a space to draw it. Like I'm not like, oh, over here is gonna have a ridge, or I'm just going with it. And then kind of defining it. So that's gonna go behind him. And then a little bit of grass there. Using that big one now. Yeah, so this is kind of like a shadow underneath these bushes here. You can get really light with these. But If you're just using like a regular pencil, sharpening them and like using them just like the side of it, you can get better, fill up space a lot quicker. And then we're gonna use, go in here. So this is gonna be more of like a mountainscape. Just make some lines. I'm letting my hand like be wobbly and like not really worried about where it goes. The idea of like a mountainscape. Give some parts might like define a little bit more, but and I'm gonna use this to add a few little clouds to the back like I did before. It's also like another blobby shape. And a few little lines. Yeah. Go back in. It's taking too long. So I'm gonna go, I want this to be more opaque, but with, so I dabbed up all the water and I'm just gonna go back on top with more paint. Which seems like it doesn't make any sense, but somehow it does to me. Make that a little bit more defined. I like a few little leaves. I'll just go through and add a little bit more with the paint where I drew with my lines. Just to bring that out a bit more. I just really love like a vibrant red and vibrant yellows. Usually going back over them will pull that color a bit more. Not quite in the lines, but that's okay. I think I'll give a little sunshine maybe up here. It's for fun. You can get a circle. There. Okay. Got too much water and you know it's gonna run, you can know that was just gonna run down the page. Just dab it up. Let's see. I think it's pretty much done. But that's, I'm gonna go over these guys. So I took all of their color away. Mostly that one. Okay. I think it's done. I feel like I should start working on it. Which leaves, I think we have time for another, maybe a small, what is it, 2:30? Maybe a small drawing if you guys are fine with that. So there's a little landscape. This is still really wet, so I'm not gonna tip it. Yeah, that's pretty much how when I make, like, I call them my blob drawings. If I'm not really sure where to start, I start with blobs and then build up a space with those. So let's go put him somewhere. And then, does anyone have any questions or comments or anything? If not, I'll just keep going. This one, I kind of want to make, haven't been doing them a lot recently, but I kind of want to make a portrait kind of here since we've got time for one more. And I'll do this pretty quickly. I'm going to start it in the same way as my last one, where just to give it like a background, got like my pink cream from before. I'm using my big brush to put down a lot, just like a nice blob of color. And this won't be a landscape, so these are just going to be for the background. And go in with my yellow, a lot of yellow. Yeah. Maybe water down the blue quite a bit and add a little bit of white to it. Got like these baby colors or like strawberry lemonade.
Hey, Rebecca.
Hey.
We got a couple questions for you in the chat. Would you like me to read them out to you?
Sure, yeah.
All right. So, how did you get the scrumbly look with the graph cube at the top of the prior painting?
Okay, so yeah, like the like this like textured kind of look.
Yeah.
I just don't press down as hard. So this paper already has somewhat of a tooth to it. So when you just like lightly go over it, only some of the graphite gets picked up and then the texture of the paper comes through. So like these like dark lines are where I'm pressing down all the way. And then up here, I'm just like half pressure, I guess. Which is really fun to use. Like if you have paper with different textures on it and you want that to come through, that's one thing I really like about it. But yeah, just a little bit less pressure.
And normally when you're painting at home, do you typically sit down or do you get up and like move around while you're drawing and painting?
I usually sit down and I usually don't draw like on my desk. I usually use like a clipboard or something and like scrunch up. So drawing this way is a little bit different for me. But I want to be able to show you guys that. But yeah, I usually sit down with the clipboard or like in a chair and hole up for a while. But I don't normally stand. If I'm working on something bigger, which I haven't made in a while, I'll stand. But yeah, mostly sitting.
Excellent. Those are all the questions.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So since this is just going to be background, I'm going to dab it up quite a bit so I can start drawing right on top of it. So I'm going to just use like my middle size guy first and draw. This one's going to be a person, so I'm going to draw some eyes first because that's that's where I know to start. I was definitely one of those kids in like high school that would just have like a bunch of eyes in their sketchbook because I didn't know what else to draw. So do like the top of the lid, and then we're just gonna do like a solid gray pupil here, and then the lower lid. Just to, I get a lot of inspiration from like anime. If you can't tell, and that's kind of what taught me how, like I learned how to draw a lot from just drawing, like redrawing and tracing anime, and like drawing figures that way. So we got a second eye, they're looking off. Give them a few little lashes underneath. And do like a upper, find the eyelid a tiny bit. And then an eyebrow right on top. Eyebrow a little thicker towards the middle of their face. Definitely not even. That's okay. And then their nose. I draw noses mostly. I could just get like the nostrils and then do like a vague shape of a nose. Like this would be like the shadow underneath. And just using the graphite a lot lighter and just making that. Maybe draw the bridge. Sometimes I don't even bother drawing the bridge, but there's a little nose. And then I think I want, other than eyes, I also love drawing hair on a portrait. So we're gonna use, I'm gonna get my regular pencil here and not press down too much. So I like to start like to define the face a bit more. Just like with grass, like I'm kind of doing, pressing down and then letting go to get like a wispy, bless you. I don't know if you heard that, but my cat sneezed. Putting them like bangs. Definitely need to take this one down. That's okay. Building up the hair. And then for like the bigger chunks of hair, I just outline them. So like, I won't draw like every strand. I'll just do that. And then you can gather that like this is like a chunk of hair. Then here, like this is one chunk of hair. And then now I'm gonna go the face. Use her switch back because I want this darker one. And then she'd have a little ear back here somewhere. And then a little part of her neck coming down from about the middle. I think I want to give her a collar. She's wearing some, kind of runs off the page, but there's some sort of collar. I'll pull it over here. Little button. There's a shirt. I'm gonna draw figures, like I don't try and define like every shape too much. Because people can kind of fill in the blanks. Like I don't need to draw like the back of her neck there because it's kind of assumed that she, I don't know, I assume that she has a back of her neck. So I don't, if I don't want a line there, I won't put it. Just like I'm probably not gonna draw like the top of her head. So I don't want like a big, I want this space to still be kind of open, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to do it because most of the detail is like in and around her face. She also needs a mouth. Mouths are kind of hard. I usually start with just like the sides of the mouth and then go, so like the sides of her mouth would line up with the middle of her eyes. And then go in and kind of define like that, be like where her lip is. And I'll use this just like I did with the nose, very lightly. It's very easy to give like people big, like overly defined like lipstick lips, which unless I'm actively drawing someone with like makeup on, I don't try and do that. There's the face. And I think I want to give her like a barrette or like a flower in her hair. Let's give a few more minutes. Give her just a little bit of something. Do like a barrette. Just going. Oh, I messed it up. Okay, that's a barrette. It doesn't have the little clippy parts, but you know. Again, when I do something like this, because now they're kind of, I've got the background and then the lines on top, so I want to try and blend them together a little bit. So I'll go back in like with the peach that I used on the background and like add it to her face so that she kind of like go around the lines that I made a little in spaces so that she sort of melds together with that. Might give her like a shadow under her neck, like near where her like shirt would go, where her shirt would fall. I might make her hair blue because I can't. So I'm just going right over my lines for this part of her hair. That way the background's still coming through. You can kind of see the lines. And then I'm gonna add more water and like fade it out up here. I just want this chunk of her hair to be more defined. And then we're gonna just really dab that up so it still fades. Might do the same on this side. A little bit in her bangs. Where that hair clip is. I don't know, hair is so fun to draw. To me, at least. And then I'm not gonna give her giant red cheeks like I did with the bunny, but just little ones. Just kind of here, maybe around her nose a little. Like very lightly on her lips. Dab that up like, I always feel like it's too much, so I just dab it right up. Gonna make her eyes a little bit darker. One thing about the graphite is it gets pretty waxy, so like once you've added enough to it, like there's no adding more to it, if that makes sense. If that happens and like I really want something to be even more bold, I'll go in with like a black marker or like a gray marker. or even though I hate the texture of it, charcoal. Just going to define her face a little bit more. Yeah. I think that's good. I think that seems done. She's like staring off into space. Don't know if I want to add anything else to her. So I'd say she's finished. So yeah, hopefully that kind of gives you guys an idea of how my process works. Does anyone else have any questions or anything before? We've got a few more minutes. I try and look at the. Can I see the chat? I don't know. Yeah, looking back at this bunny, I don't know. It's very wonky bunny. I think this one might be my favorite from today. But then, yeah. Oh yeah, thank you guys too.
Yeah.
I could see
You do have
someone.
questions, actually.
Oh, okay, cool. They disappeared for me.
Oh, sorry. So, you ever combine crayons with watercolor?
Oh yeah, I love that actually. Like the waxiness where you can paint over it. That's so fun. I also have these things, which I should have used. I don't know if you guys can read that, but it's an art crayon. That's like what it's called, but they're water soluble. So it's kind of like a tube of lipstick almost, and it feels like a tube of lipstick, but it goes down like a crayon. But then you can add water to it, and I love these things. That's just like another material. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, hold on. I just lost one. I had one more in the chat for you. What are some of your artistic influences?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I really love like children's illustration, like Richard Scarry. Scarry is like one of my favorites. I'm not sure if I pronounced her name. Tove Johnson. She does the Moomin troll books and cartoons and stuff. I really love her work. And then also anime and manga, like Studio Ghibli, if anyone's familiar with that, they're some of my favorite movies. And then there's a few other like artists. I can't think of her name. I want to say her name is like Rumiko. She did Inuyasha and Ranma 1/2. If you're familiar with those are some of my favorite like aesthetically drawn animes, and I take a lot of influence from those. And yeah, and then just like kind of my daily life, and stuff around me, like our cats, and I've got guinea pigs, so I draw them sometimes, like our garden. Yeah, that's about it.
When you're choosing colors, are you thinking about color theory, like e.g. complements, and like secondary colors, or are you choosing the colors kind of intuitively?
I think more so intuitively. Like I do think about like, oh, if I mix like this color and this color, is it just gonna muddle together? But like as far as like especially with like the landscape, like I'm not trying to pick like realistic colors or anything. I just kind of am using like these are some of my favorite colors, like this bright red, bright yellow. So I'm just pulling from those and seeing how they play together. But yeah, I'm not thinking too much about theory whenever I'm drawing. I know it's probably like in the back of my head and I'm thinking more than I am aware, but I wouldn't say so too much, if that makes sense. It's probably, I'm subconsciously probably doing it.
All right, well, are there any more questions? If not, I think we can bring this to a conclusion. Stop the recording.